Welcome. So, in this class, we are going to be learning about functions. In the last class, we covered comprehensions, we looked at list comprehension, and some other important concepts in comprehension. We looked at dictionary comprehension also. But in today's class, we are going to be learning about functions in Python. And functions are one of the most foundational, one of the key aspects of Python. And what does it help us do? It solves a very important programming problem. And the problem is the problem of you not repeating yourself. How can we make it so that we do not repeat ourselves? How can we make it so that when we write something once, we can actually package it in a way that makes it reusable? And anytime we want to access that particular thing, instead of writing the entire logic, the entire code, we just go into that particular function, pick the name of the function, and give it the tools that it needs to work, and it's going to get the job done. So, for example, let's say we have a program. We write a program that greets someone. So you could go something like input. We would go name equals input, enter your name. Then we can come here and say, we can print hi name. How are you? Excuse me. Then we can add an F string here, right? So if you run this and we say John, it greets hi John, how are you? Fine, everything is okay. But we now have another program that we're writing. And this program, write a program that registers students and welcome them to school, welcome them to class. So this thing is kind of like an attendance register. So you give it your name, it is going to greet you and welcome you. So first thing is this: we have to go um name. No, let's set up our register first. So we can go register. That's going to be an empty list. Then we can now go name equals, again you're going to see we are doing the whole thing that we are doing here. We need this whole thing, this whole logic. So we can control C it and paste it here. Then after doing that, we now go register. In fact, we go register dot append the person's name, and we can come here now and maybe print again, say f string, say just tell them welcome to class since we've already greeted them once. Now if we should run this and we go, I don't know, Wale, I works, it says hi Wale, how are you, welcome to class. But this functionality here, this particular two lines, we already have it here, right? So why are we creating it over again? Like, why are we creating that over and over again? So imagine every time we need something like that, we have to be copying this code. Now imagine this code is like 500 lines long or 1,000 lines long. Normally you would probably not find it. Even if you find a function that is that long, it's probably not a good idea to have a single function. But let's like 50 lines, 20 lines, 30 lines, something like that. It is bad. Even for 2 lines, it is bad for us to keep carrying this thing around. So how can we now fix this? So the way to fix this is by actually wrapping this single logic in a function, and we can now use the function elsewhere. So I'm going to remove all of this. I could have just edit this, but I want you to understand how a function works normally. So I'm going to keep this the same, but just delete this for now. So to create a function, the first thing we do is we start with the def keyword. Every single time, if you want to create a function, you must always start with the def keyword. So we say def, kind of like define. I think it's short for define. Then the next thing is the name of the function. So we're going to say define greet. We are naming the function greet. And the function greet, what will it accept? What does it need to do its job? So what it needs is it needs the name. Imagine you have a bouncer at the door or a receptionist at the door or I don't know, a staff at the door that welcomes people to your establishment, your business. What they need to be able to probably properly greet someone, and personalize the greeting is the name of they need to like know the name of the person, like, hi, you're welcome. What's your name? Say, oh, my name is John. Say, oh, hi, John, you're welcome. How are you? So it means if you don't know somebody's name, you cannot really personalize the greeting. And that's the same way functions work. We need to give the function the parameter that it needs. So we call it parameters or arguments that it needs to get the job done. And in this case, the argument is name, right? So after that, we end it with a colon and go to the next line. And after that, we can just print f string I name. Come here and say, how are you? Now, that's fine. But if I should come here now and say greet, and I go name equals John, we're going to have the same output that we had earlier. So we have, hi John, how are you? So this functionality of hi somebody, how are you, which is this two line, we can literally just remove it here. Like we can remove it here. So I can remove to like put that within this particular thing. I can remove this, and upon accepting that person's name, I can just come here and say greet, and I say name equals the person's name. That is name, which is the variable here, is equals the person's name. So to avoid confusion, let me call this one student underscore name, student underscore name, and here is going to be student underscore name, and registered or append is going to be append the student's name. So now we've been able to remove all that line of code, and we can just run this now. And if they ask for the name, we can just give it Roland. And if we run that, it says, hi Roland, how are you? Then it prints welcome to class. And we've removed all of those long print line and everything, and we've replaced it with just this greet function. So we can call this greet function anywhere we like and use it. So the whole idea of this is, so let's say I need this greet functionality elsewhere again. I don't have to be doing print, all of that. I just need that particular functionality alone. So now that we've seen what it is used for, let's just create some nice functions. So let's write a function that checks if a number is, I think we had one prime number stuff the other day. No, let's start with odd and even, that checks if a number is even. And it's going to return true or false. So we can say def, call it is even. Then what is the parameter that it needs? For example, don't forget, first thing that you pass it to your function is the def keyword. Second thing is the name of the function. Let me take that again. Whenever you are creating a function, you start with the def keyword. Second thing is the name of the function. Third thing is the bracket, and inside the bracket you pass in the parameters that the function needs to operate. So in this case, the only parameter that we need to check if a number is even or odd, to check whether a number is even, is the number itself. So after that, the next thing that we do is we come here and we are going to say if number modulus 2 equals 0, then we'll print And I want to show you something extremely important. We can print true, which is even going to be a string. Then that is all. Or we can also print false, else print false. Now, if we should go to outside of this particular function and say it's even, and we say number equals 23. Now it's going to say false, right? And if we do 22, it is going to be true. Now this seems to work, especially the way we want it to, but there are like a little things that we need to point out. So the first thing that we need to point out that is extremely important is the fact that this function really does not return anything, and we are getting into the return keyword currently. So this function does not return anything; it just prints. In fact, if you check the structure of this function, really, like if you put your mouse on this function here, around the if you're on IDEs like VS Code, you're going to see that the return type is none. Like it is none, meaning that it does not return anything. And a way of checking that is if I want to use this function to check whether a number is even or odd and use that to pass somewhere else, it is not going to work because this is not returning anything. Right? This is not returning anything. If I should check type of is even for number equals 3. Now it is going to print out none. Yeah. So can you see? It prints out none type. It's telling you that this is nothing. This guy returns nothing because the only thing we are doing is printing. So the important thing for us to always do is whenever we are doing something like this, we should always return. And return actually gives us back a value. So we say return true. And if we come here and say return false, even if we are not doing boolean, let's say we are doing strings, which is not what we should do in this case, but when we are doing this, it is not going to say non-type anymore. It's going to say string. So if I should run this now and still running, it returns true. So if I should run here now, it says string. It is not just non-type. So but the right thing to do here is actually true, like this. And if we run this and we give it that, it is going to be bool, right? So if we give it 5, let's say we just check if 5 is even, check if 5 is even, we can say is even of, and you don't have to say number equals something, you can literally just say 7, it's even 7, and it's going to say false. 7 is not an even number. So again, whenever we are setting up a function, the function is going to go like def, the name of the function, the parameters. So let's write a function that returns the tithe amount a Christian should pay based on their salary. So I'm going to say def, so it gets tithe. Then in the bracket, you're going to pass in salary. And you don't always have to have a single parameter, right? You can have multiple parameters. We're going to see an example of that shortly. Or let's see it here. So we take their name also, name. So we can come here and say tithe is going to be equals to 10% of your salary, which is 0.1 times salary, and we can return the output as f string I, name, your tithe is, then we go tithe. This tithe that we've created here. So we should come to this place and we go get tithe of, salary equals 3,000, name equals John, and you run that. It's going to go, hi John, your salary is 300. And another thing that we can actually look at is something called default parameters. So let's look at default parameters. Let's say in some cases it's possible for some people to not want to disclose their name, right? And if that happens, we just want to pass in uh, maybe child of God, so that it makes that name thing optional. It's not important anymore. So we can say name equals, we come here and say name equals brethren. And if we should come here now and say get underscore tithe, and we just say salary equals um 2,500, and I'm not passing in a name, I'm not giving it a name. If I should run this, it still works. It's just going to say I, brethren, your tithe is 2,500. But here in this case here, if I do not pass in a name here, it throws an error. It's going to tell you, well, I expect this number of parameters, but you are giving me this one. It says get tithe is missing one required positional argument. So name. And it means you have to supply name. If you go, and you don't have to always do it like I showed you earlier, you can just go 3,000 comma John or comma James, and it goes, hi James, your tithe is 300. And like I said, for default parameters, you can set that equals to something. And if you should come and think, okay, me, I actually want to pass in my name to be Amos, it's going to override the current brethren that you have. It's going to have, I Amos, your tithe is so amount. I hope it makes sense. So that is default parameters. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we can have multiple you know arguments, any number of arguments that you want. We can you can have it. And another thing is the scope of variables within functions. So for example, if I should call out tithe here, and this is something that we should learn. If I should say tithe here, if I should print out tithe, print try to print tithe, excuse me, and I run this, it's going to say an error. Why? Because it says tithe is not defined, tithe doesn't exist. Meanwhile, you might be wondering, well, tithe is here now, right? This is tithe here. So why is it not now saying it? The reason why it's not saying it is because this thing is called a local variable. So everything that exists within this function is local to this particular function, only exists within this function. So you cannot call it outside a variable that you define within a function. If you do not return it, that particular thing itself, you cannot call it outside. So anything that exists outside of a function is called a global variable. So for example, this register is a global variable because it is not within a function. So this type here is a local variable because it is only local to within this function alone. So that is important to point out. Now, let us actually um, move on to something called unlimited argument. So how do we do it in situations where we need to pass in unlimited arguments? We do that by writing something called args, like args, star args. So let's say we want to write a program. Let me just add that here and say unlimited arguments. So let's say I want to write it. I want to write a function that returns or calculates averages, calculates averages, average of a set of number. So how do we do that? For example, I'm going to say def get underscore average. And in this case, if we should pass in, let's say something like first number equals this, second number equals that. We don't know the number of numbers that we need. For example, if I should say A, B, C, then I go here and do something. Let's say I just add them together. I can say return A, comma A plus B. Let me open a bracket. A plus B plus C divided by 3, because well, this is 3. So if I should come here and say get average of A, or let's just say 2, 3, 4, it's going to work. It says 3. The average of 2, 3, and 4 is 3. If it is 2, 13, and 4, that's going to be 6.33. But then this in this case now we are confined, we are boxed into just getting the average of 3 numbers. If we should add one more number, 4, there's a D, there's a problem. Sorry, not here. If I should come here and add one more number like this, it gets an error. It says now we have one more error, one more argument, and this thing supports 3. So, and when you are computing averages, it could be average of any length of number. You don't know the length of number that are going to be given to compute the average. So that is a classic case of unlimited argument. So how do we do that? We do that by putting star in front of the stuff. So we can say star norms. Some people like to say star args, but just star the name of whatever you want to do. So let me just return norms alone for now and see how it comes out. So if I should run this now, it works. It's just going to return the tuple of everything that I give it. So if I want, I can extend this and say like so, several arguments, and it's going to like give me more. So all I can do now to return average is just to say the sum of all these norms divided by the length of these norms. This one is going to give me my um, average. So the average of this one is 5.4545 and all of that. So if I should add 189, pushes the average up a lot to 20.75. So this is how you do unlimited arguments. Like when you don't know the number of arguments that you're going to be given to start with, right? So the next one is unlimited keyword argument. I'm going to have unlimited keyword arguments. Let's add one more. Say unlimited keyword arguments. And how does that works? Now, in some cases, you just don't want to add unlimited arguments alone. You actually need the keywords, like the keywords that you are giving them, that you are giving into the function. You want it to be tracked also because, well, there is no keyword there. Keyword is something like this: salary equals this, name equals that. So how can we do that? Let's say we want to write a function that um I don't know, print students info. Let's say write a function, that returns student info, something like this. So what can we do now? We can say def get info, something like this. And in here, we don't know the we are opening this thing up for these people to be able to print as many information as they want. Like you can just go ahead, print as many information as you want. So how can we do that? We are going to do star star, and it's going to be two star star here and quags, but it could be anything really. You could write anything here, quags, but I'm just going to say star star info. So unlimited argument is one star. Only unlimited keyword argument is two stars. Star star. So I should return uh info just to show you. It returns it as a dictionary actually, just to show you what's going to happen. So if I should say get info and I go name equals Fola, age equals 23, um let's say gender equals male. If I should run this, I get this outcome here. And if I should remove any one of them and go like this and run this, it still works. If I should add more, it still works. However many I add, it still works. So this allows me to actually pass in unlimited keyword arguments, like just pass in anything, any number of stuff that you want to pass in, and the function is going to be able to work with it, right? So yeah, that is the way functions are structured, from the simple passing in positional arguments to passing in unlimited arguments to passing in unlimited keyword arguments. That's how it works. Now, and you already know what functions help us to do, help us to write reusable code that we can reuse many times. Now, what is now like the best practice for writing functions? So let's look at that. And this is not something you need to worry yourself more about currently. It is just important that whatever is worth doing at all is worth doing well. And for readability, I'm very big on readability because in my experience, you are going to spend more time reading other people's work on the job than actually like writing things by yourself. So if everybody in the industry, like in the community, can actually put more effort into writing good clean code, then it helps us to achieve more. Like it pushes us more forward. So let's say good practice. So some good practice with function. So let's write this simple function that is going to convert naira to dollar. So I'm going to write a function. To write a function. But let's say write a function, yeah, that converts naira to dollar. So first thing is to say def, and we say convert to dollar. So it's very good that you name your function, in a very, very descriptive manner so that you know what the function is doing. So we say def convert to dollar, and the parameters of the function is going to go, what do we need? We need naira amount. And what we are going to do is we are going to like int the expected data type that we want it to collect. That is, the naira amount should always be of the type float. So that whenever anybody is passing in a naira amount, they know that they are expected to pass in a float. Is that right? Yeah, let's say this takes more. Let's say we take charges or something like that. You can add that. So great, 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 great. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of one more thing that we can add that helps. Let's say there is official rate and unofficial rate. So if we should come here, we can say official. Then this is a boolean. So we can say this should be a boolean, right? So we are trying to say, okay, at the end of the day, is it going to be the official rate or the black market rate or stuff like that? So These are the two things that we need: the naira amount and whether we want the official rate or not, and it is a boolean. So the next that we're going to do is the expected return type. What kind of return do you expect? We expect it to return a float also. When this guy is done, we expect it to return a float. So we end it. Now, the next thing we're going to do is you need to add something called docstring. So docstring, you use these 6 quotes here to add docstring. So we can, and docstring is going to be like this thing that quickly gives them a quick documentation of how the function is expected to work, like a quick description. So we can go, this function returned, say accepts a naira value and converts it to dollar using current exchange rate. You have the opportunity to choose whether to use the official rate or black market rate. Market rate. Now, let's keep it single. We are not going to add arguments for now. Let's just go on and write the function. So the next that we are going to write is, before let's even pass it. Let's just pass. Now, before we do anything, I'm going to run this and try to call convert dollar and show you just how that works. So look at convert dollar. And what you see is this: we have naira amount, we expect it to be float. We have official, which is whether we want it to be the official rate or some other rate. So we say official, and that is going to be a boolean, whether true or false, and we expect it to be a float. So anybody that looks at this already sees, okay, this is the way this function is expected to work. And they can also see like this function accepts a naira value and converts it to dollar using the current exchange rate. You have the opportunity to choose whether to use the official rate or black market rate. We didn't have to do anything. We just, the only thing we do is just type convert dollar and open this. Immediately give us docstring. This thing is called docstring. And if you do it with other functions that we've created, for example, this get info. If I should come here and try to use get info, get underscore info, and I do it, you see, there's nothing, it just says info any dict string, whatever stuff. And the reason he knows this should be dict is because we are doing star star quacks, we are doing unlimited keyword arguments, right? So we didn't give it anything. So if I should just come in here and write more stuff here and say, okay, I don't know, this, that, say this, that, and that, and run that, then come here now. Can you see? We now have this, that, and that, more information that help us to learn. So if we use that, if we come back in here, that is exactly what this guy helped us to do, getting more information about our function. So let's go in here and define our function better. So like we can actually like write the whole thing. So we want to say if official, that is if we are using the official rate, we are going to go dollar underscore value is going to be equals to, and you can also type int variable. So we can go dollar value, which is going to be a float, something like this, is equal to um what's that, naira amount divided by, so let's say the current exchange rate for dollar is, I don't know, 1,750. Then we can go else, that is else if it is not the official one. What we are going to do is we are going to say dollar value, let's say the black market rate is, let's say that is going to be float also. It's going to be equals to naira. What's that? Naira amount divided by 2000. Let's say something like that, 2000. Then we can go all the way down and say return dollar value, right? So if we should run this now, come here and pass in naira amount equals 5,000 naira, and we say official equals true. That is, want to get the official rate. If we run this, we get um 20 $20. And if we pass official equals to false, that is, we don't want to use the official rate, we want to use the black market rate, and we run this, it says 17.5. So you get less dollar for the black market, from the black market. And we can actually set this to um, a default parameter. So we say official, which is bool, is going to be true. So by default, unless you specify otherwise, it is always going to be true. So if we should run this, we're going to get 17 point. We're going to get, okay, we have an error. Let's check what that error is. So it says convert to dollar is missing one position argument, probably because we haven't run this again. So let's run this again now. Perfect. So this works now. So if we want, and if you put this here now, you're going to see that the other one is going to be optional. So can you see, because this is now set to true, and anybody that reads this is going to know, okay, oh, these are like what this person want. This is how this person wants their function to be used, just by looking at this documentation. And you cannot really write too much of documentation, right? So it's very good, especially when you are working on a very good project. So, and you can also add arguments. You can come here, and add and say args. Come here and say args, and add our this. Sorry. If you are coming from platforms like VS Code, there are extensions in VS Code that helps you to do this. But so we can come here and say naira amount, and we tell the type. The type is going to be float, and we can explain what that does. We say the amount of, I say the value of the naira to be converted. Then another, I think we can come here and say second one to be official, and that's going to be optional. We can say this is bool, and we can say the value, the whether to use, whether or not to use the official rate or black market. You can say this defaults to true, right? Then another thing that we can do is we can actually also set the return value. So we can, and the return type also. So we can go here and say returns. Then here, so what does it return? It returns what's that? A float. So it's going to be a float, and it's going to be a float of the dollar value. So all of this, if we run this, And we check now, we check now, we see, can you see we have more information now? Like, let me do that again. So can you see we have the function, blah blah blah, we have the argument, and another thing that some people do is they come here, and this works more on VS Code. They add this underscore here and kind of like italicize the particular thing that you are working on. So this is probably going to italicize it in VS Code. So that is how you document a function, and it is extremely important that you always learn to document your functions very well. But if you don't know how to, write all of this yet, you can always just do the very simple thing, right? The very simple thing that we've been doing. You write your function, but you can never go wrong with specifying types and anything because, for example, this particular salary, yeah, get salary. I do not know whether I'm to type the salary in words or to pass it in integers. So that is basically an introduction to function. And one thing I can guarantee you is moving forward, you are going to see a lot of function. Like as we move forward, we are going to be using function almost every day. So if you still do not like get a deep hang of it yet, you are going to when we get to as we proceed to using functions. So thank you. See you in the next one. Bye.